Y'all, I'm struggling to cover Ghyran. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
So when the second edition for Age of Sigmar core book, right here, this big honking thing, was previewed to have more information about the realms, including maps and things like that, I was, as you would expect, ultimately overjoyed. And we've been doing this fun series where we explore each realm, taking time to talk about not only what it's physically like there, what kind of people it makes, the history that we know from the Realmgate Wars or any book coming up towards it, as well as how to model your army after it. And I've really loved the ones that we've covered. I think so far we did, Shyish long ago before this book came out, but Akshi and Realm of Metal and Gur was a lot of fun. And I wanted to end the Sylvaneth week by talking about Ghyran, but the second I did, I hit a huge roadblock. Part of what makes the other realms so much fun to cover is that they all have either a glorious history that's really fun to dig into, or a unified concept. For example, let's talk about history one. The Realm of Metal, Chaman. Incredibly interesting. It had a very detailed history about the way these tribes formed and were functioning together, what greed looks like in between those things, how the machinations of chaos came and ruined everything, its everlasting effects, how it's literally warped the islands into what we find now. Given that they did the whole thing in 3 pages, that's actually a very comprehensive history. Conversely, talk about Realm of Fire, actually, where it gave this huge drama about nation states and how you have 2 that are incredibly wealthy and push each other to strive technologically, and 2 that are barbaric, and the conflicts between the 4 of them contrasting and messing with one another gave birth to something truly evil, and Khorne burrowed into that land. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say it was important to have those really cool histories because they showed us how those chaos gods who kind of selected a realm to really focus on, Khorne for fire, Tzeentch for metal, really took hold of those areas. And it was super fascinating to learn about. And then you go over to Gur, which doesn't have a comprehensive history, but it does have this unifying theme of kind of beast-like nature and the food chain and being aggressive and reckless and ravaging and all these kinds of cool things. You have mountains that are literally alive and rivers that are alive, and they're all fighting for survival. Even the terrain itself, it moves and it warps, and it's all hunting you and trying to eat you. I gotta say, so far that was my favorite realm to cover. I was blown away and by how surprised I was with, I was not expecting this kind of fun narrative thing. I thought I was just gonna be and there's lots of animals and skeletons, and that was pretty cool. I would say where Realm of Metal and Fire excelled in history, the Realm of Gur gave us a lot more of the feel of what it's like, which really helped with understanding what life is like there. But then I came to Ghyran. And here's the thing, I'm going to rapid fire through here all the different sub-stories that they tell you about Ghyran, and tell me if you understand why I'm having trouble making a cohesive narrative out of it. So Ghyran's section starts off by talking about 2 continents who every year come together and have sex. The fruits of that are 3 islands that apparently happen every spring, but don't really go away. I'm not quite sure how that works, how they do this every year, but the islands don't really go away. But hey, let's not think about landmass sex too much.
Still a better love story than Twilight.
And the reason we're not going to think about it too much is because we're going to move away from talking about how the land masses are living things and go really into these 2 islands that they birth. One has angry people, one has lovely people. Angry people can't procreate very well, so they go and steal the lovely people's children, and they have a little conflict, but it's okay in the end. But don't even worry about that, because we're going to move away from that story section and talk about how humans and Sylvaneth are actually getting along pretty well. Because these humans are day trading their time by being caretakers of the land, and in exchange the Sylvaneth let them live in the trees. But don't get too attached, because the very next half paragraph down is how the humans got lazy and everything started to fall apart. Now scratch all of that narrative, because Nagash is being a jerk and he's invading one of those 3 islands that get birthed annually, the one that's all about decrepitness and age and things like that. Spoiler alert, the dead guy likes dead things. But there's not going to be any resolution to that, because quite frankly the story is going to end with Sigmar walking in saying, Alariel, Nagash, don't fight each other, work for me. A crummy truce is temporarily formed until Nagash does what Nagash does, breaks the treaty, and a big fight starts amongst those islands between undead and the tree people. I say tree people because there's humans there as well as Sylvaneth, so it's like a conglomerate. And then we stop talking completely about Nagash invading those territories to say, hey, Kurnoth! You're here. And things kind of wind down by simply saying, backing off from all those subplots and saying, hey, the god beast Behemoth who we met in the Realm Gate Wars came, got tired, and laid down, and that's why we find him where he is. Now that's just the Age of Myth. What we saw was a whole bunch of subplots going in a bunch of different directions. So let's kind of dissect that. We're going to go age by age here. With the thing with the Age of Myth is there are like several different really great story idea leads, like places to start that are not fleshed out. They had like 6 great ideas but didn't pick one to really dive into. The idea of the realm itself, like the land masses, the continents, all being alive, like living, moving, and active, and having their own life cycles is an incredibly fascinating thing, and it's a shame that it gets a paragraph and a half. We don't really know how these like children islands work. It would be really great if they fleshed it out and said, every year the male and female continent come together, they create a new landmass which either grows every year, like it literally has its own life cycle, or kind of clumps together with others and they kind of collectively form something. These would all be great story ideas if they took the time to really explore the idea of what the Earth itself looks like if it is a single living organism. I say Earth, I mean like that particular plot of Earth, the continent itself. Then we talk about 2 islands, and they're kind of different. So one is kind of the spring focus, where it's all bright and beautiful, and they're very vibrant people who are happy. This is all Sylvaneth, and there's humans there too. But the other island is kind of the fall season, where things are in a state of decline and decay, and so they're kind of bitter and sour. And how these 2 things, which are both on the same team, right? They're both humans in Sylvaneth, but how they interact with one another shows a great kind of contrast for what life can look like. And it's not really explored. We know there's a sub-story where the kind of decrepit ones steal the young of the joyful ones in spring, and that can't be tolerated, so they fight, but that fight is not really explored, nor is it really resolved very well. I think it's a missed opportunity because that kind of contrast within a sub-faction, by that I mean you're both in Ghyran, you're both in the same continent area, you just have so polarizing different views of how life should go, is fascinating, and I wanted to know more. Skip forward, a common question that I've had asked to me, and I ask as well, is how do humans interact with Sylvaneth? Because they are kind of alien in a sense, right? Their values are different, their perspectives are very different, their communication is vastly different. How does that work? And so we got this story next, and I'm literally going in order of how they bounce around, of humans and Sylvaneth living well together and how that declines and the tension therein. That is an incredibly interesting plotline that I know several people, including myself, would love to learn about. It's given a paragraph and a half. And then we abruptly stop investigating that and talk about Nagash invading, which I'm very curious about because I love to see the gods interact like this. I wish they had done it more in some of the other realms. I love seeing, like, in this story, there is Sigmar, Alariel, and Nagash. And Alariel's not, like, the champion of Ghyran. She gets her stuff kicked in because Nagash comes in with an army of the dead out of nowhere. This is, again, the drama amongst gods. Just like Akshi did the drama amongst nations, and Shaman did the drama amongst the tribes, I wanted to see and explore this more, but it never really got dove into. When I did my video on the Kurnoth Hunters, I talked about Kurnoth a little bit, and I had someone comment and say, I'm surprised you didn't talk about Kurnoth more. He's in the core rulebook talking about Ghyran. And it just says every year he shows up and he's kind of like Alariel's suitor, because they're god-level beings. But there's not really more information. But it takes the paragraph to point out, hey, he's here. Cool, buddy. You're here. And of course, they kind of cut all of that short to say, the god beast came here, and this is how we set up for Realm Gate Wars. Which, interesting note, I guess I kind of assumed that Behemoth would have laid down during the Age of Chaos, but he did in the Age of Myth, which is interesting because this entire time that the Age of Chaos was going on, he was just laying there asleep. I get that. I relate to that. That's probably the most strong relation I've ever had to a character. I just sleep through anything. And while this may seem very critical, I'm not saying that these are bad ideas. Each one of these is a fantastic investigation of this realm. Each one of these things could spawn its own 3-page set. I think they're all incredible ideas. I think they just jammed them all in without exploring any of them, and that kind of stinks. Because they continue that theme when it comes to the Age of Chaos. Basically, if you look at the other realms we've covered, when Chaos comes in, it's a momentous event relative to the realm. So like Tzeentch manipulated the events in Shaman to make it so that his portal would open and demons fly out. Or Khorne manipulated this great championship amongst brutal tribes so there'd be enough bloodshed to like spawn forth bloodletters and demons. These are all really cool things. But in Ghur, Chaos didn't really have a chance to enter because that's part of their identity. It reinforces what the realm is about. And then you look over at Ghyran, and it just says, like, Nurgle saw what was going on there, was really jealous of it. He loves life, loves to infect things, saw plenty of stuff to infect, and he sent a bunch of flies that no one noticed, and they kind of slowly began corrupting things. I guess I was looking for more of a momentous thing where they, like, Nurgle took a very firm action to make events happen, to, like, kind of come in with force, but it just seemed like he corrupted realm gates with insects and stuff like that, and kind of slowly trickled in, which I do suppose is more like an infection than anything else, which is exactly what he would be about. So I'll give it a pass on that one. But when you talk about the Age of Chaos in this section, it's kind of all over the place, because if we're going with the infection metaphor, they happen in very different locations. The Glotkin comes up here. You have the different, what they call the Magath Riders, those 3 characters coming in various points. Each one gets a little bit of showtime. And it's just kind of snippets of all the things that are happening all over the place, which collectively, yes, make a travesty, and you can see why the War of Life went so badly. But you just, coming off of the Age of Myth section to this, it just feels like you're shooting around history and locations with no real clear idea of what's going on. Again, this is not a unifying history or concept, it's just kind of a series of events that happen all over the place, shotgun style. So the reason this is relevant is because as I'm trying to make notes for this, it is extremely difficult to make this a coherent thing. In fact, I'm probably going to spend more time on Ghyran than I am on other realms, simply because I want to explore these things. To that end, I'm probably not going to have a real Ghyran video at the end of this week, because the concepts of living landmasses, of gods duking it out, amongst the mortals below them, those kinds of things, they're epic stories, and I think they deserve to be told. They need more time than this book gave us. So I will be doing a full Ghyran coverage. I absolutely will. But I needed to get this out there to explain why Sylvaneth Week 1 is not going to end with that kind of video, but also give you a sense of there are incredibly awesome things in this section. Ghyran, they've made it a very fascinating realm with apparently a rich history, but they didn't give us a chance to really explore any of that history. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be negative. This is not a negative review. It's simply saying it's going to take more time to really dive into these things because the concepts are so lofty and so huge. I just wish we had more of it. So here's what I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to do my own personal dive and make my own lore section for Ghyran. Tell me in the comments below what you would like to learn more about. Obviously, I'm going to try to compile all information there is about Kurnoth, which is very little. But in addition to that, I'm going to make a full history from the Realmgate Wars, kind of stuff that's only relevant to Ghyran, as well as read some of the side stories that take place there, the smaller ones, like the e-read only things, and give you your own kind of custom lore video for it, because this book is so all over the place. It'll be in depth, but it will take time. So again, tell me what you want to learn about Ghyran. Of course, I'm going to talk about modeling opportunities and things like that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Hope you've enjoyed this long kind of form discussion week on Sylvaneth. It's been a wild ride. There's a lot of really cool kind of sub-factions in there that I have thoroughly enjoyed learning about. Particularly the Outcast has been my favorite video that I did for this series. And if you want to learn more about any of those things, go ahead and click subscribe, leave it in the comments down below, and I respond to you right away. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.